Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tastemakers podcast. This is, of course, the podcast where we make your tastes. I mean, it's in the name. I don't know why you had to have me describe it like that. It's just, already doing a lot of work for you here on this podcast. But I'm your host, Taran Armstrong. And with me today, as always, it's Grace. How you doing, Grace?
I am good. We're smart people. We watch TV and we tell people what they should and shouldn't watch. That's what we're here to do today, Darren. There's a lot of TV. And I said this last week, but every week we come on and there's a lot of TV on. And so some of it's good, some of it's fine, and that's probably worth letting you know whether or not it's fine or good or great. So we'll do that.
Fine or good or great. We'll keep you on top of what's happening in the news of TV and film, at least in the sphere that we tend to walk in. And then what's on, what's coming, what's good. That's what we do here. And we've got some stuff on the docket here, some news items, some new shows that came out this week. Arcane, Day of the Jackal, Wolf Hall, Heretic just came in to theaters. We've got some shows to catch up on. Disclaimer ended. The Diplomat I finished watching. The Penguin ended. And then lots of upcoming shows this week as well that we will talk about.
There's a lot.
A lot. There's a lot of upcoming shows. I looked at the list for just this week and I was like, oh my God, that's so many things to watch.
I'll do a little plug this week. What you should do is I am now writing an article for Parade where it says what's new on streaming. So it's just streaming. So if we're catching something that's on network TV, it probably won't be included. And it's not movies right now, but people could check out that article on Parade every week. It'll come out every Friday, and then you can know what's coming. And then you listen to us on Monday, and we'll tell you what you should and shouldn't watch based on those things. And there might be even things in there that don't really ping on our radar, but then you go check it out and you watch it and you come back and tell us we should watch it. And then we'll decide whether it's good or not. We won't immediately trust your opinion, but we'll see. This could be a new formula. But yeah, that's a new article I'm writing on Parade.com. It's what's new on streaming this week. So,
there you go. All right. Well, one thing I noticed, I saw, and I actually think I had seen this last week, but we didn't get around to mentioning it, was this interesting article I saw about South Korean theaters and how they have been apparently testing what they call snack films, which is like just a smaller movie. You might call it a short film. You might call it an episode of television that's just one episode. But basically, they're releasing these things in theaters. So the one that they were particularly talking about in this article was 444, Time of Fear, which was a 44-minute long horror film that they said, especially horror films, like it makes sense to be faster paced, to be a little bit shorter. And quite frankly, I kind of agree to some degree. I think horror movies often spend a little too much time.
If I see a horror movie and it's 120 minutes, I'm like, mistake. I think I haven't even seen the movie yet. I'm like, wrong.
but they also go and so I believe there's also
a 13-minute thriller. Night fishing. Whoa.
Yes. But what this film, okay, I didn't even notice this. This film is comprised of 8 shorts, 4 minutes and 44 seconds in length each. Which is very funny.
That is funny. Okay.
But anyway, they're basically, they're testing this out. There's even one as short as 13 minutes. And the idea is that, they're trying to get audiences into theaters, which is always a struggle. Theaters are these massive buildings that take up a lot of real estate and, cost a lot of money to maintain and operate. And, it's been a challenge. COVID happened. There was a lot of things going on. And so I think this is very interesting. I'm not particularly interested in going to a 3-hour movie in a theater. I've talked about that. The idea of going for something very short is kind of compelling to me. At the same time, I don't know if I want to drive all the way to a theater and be there for 13 minutes and leave. That also seems a little strange. But in the conversation about are movies too long? Are attention spans too short? I think this is interesting, and I'm curious to see how it does in terms of this sort of experiment.
Yeah, so this is an article from Screen Daily, which we'll throw in the show notes below if you'd like to read it. I think it's very interesting. I think that I'm probably like, I'm not quite where you are. I'm actually a little bit more of like, I don't really tend to go to the movie theater and watch one movie, Taran. I'm like, well, I'm going, might as well watch two. Sometimes I do a 3 a day movie,
Well,
three movies in a day.
sorry to interrupt, but it's funny you say that because a
Mm-hmm.
very recent, I was literally looking at like the movies that are coming out, and what they're doing, at least where I am, is that they're playing. I believe it's the first 3 episodes of the new Dragon Ball
Yes.
series in theaters.
Yes. Yes.
It's like an hour 20,
Yep.
and it's the premiere of the English dub of it.
Yep.
I, as a child, was a massive Dragon Ball fan, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't that be fun to go
Yeah.
see Dragon Ball Daima? I think it's Daima in theaters. The first 3 episodes of the show, it's got a good rating. It's people are liking it, and I was like, is it worth it to go just for that though? Because I also have like what is it, Anora to see,
Yep.
and like a bunch
Which
of a
is long.
Heretic
Honor's
I
pretty
want to
long.
see. Like,
Yep.
so should I just go and see a couple of movies? Should I do
That's
that?
that's what I do. It's like I go and I go to the movies like quite often. So like I'm the extreme version of this, of just being like, yeah, okay, I'll hit this one. And it annoys me to no end when it knows me to no end when they're not like synced up well, like when the
Yeah.
timing is wrong and I'm like, oh, I can't actually make the next showing of the film because I'll be like still 15 minutes left in the last film. But the thing with the South Korean, like these like snack films with lower ticket price, like so it's more affordable is the thing, is like I do think that probably is one of the things that is causing people to go to theaters less. If we look at like the box office numbers as of November, as of today, I think Box Office Mojo has it. We're about like $1 billion less in revenue than last year. It is more than 2022, but all of that to say it's like 3 billion less than pre-COVID time. So there is like, I think we're like we might be in like kind of a new normal ish right now in terms of like, this year probably was affected by the writer's strike, so it might be down. It's hard to tell sort of where we are in the like, but my general feeling, like the anecdotal feeling, is COVID did really disrupt the way people decide whether or not to go to the movies, especially because they come to streaming so quick. And that feels like a change that is not going to. I think we're just in that now. That I think, especially if a movie doesn't do great, they can make up a lot of that money. Maybe we don't need to be thinking about like box office as like when people go to the theaters, but how many people watched these movies. There was a recent article in Variety as well, which we'll throw in the show notes, that talked about this like massive investment that a lot of the major chains are going to do over North America. That mostly seems to be about a few things, which is one is like making sure the sound and the quality is good. I mean, if you're gonna go, you don't want to sit. I've sat in theaters where like you can kind of hear the staticky thing of the speakers, like kind of like blowing out the speakers, and you're like, oh, that's a bummer. It like ruins the movie experience for me. So I like that. But then also this appeal to like the lobbies and what you can do in the lobbies. And I feel like a lot of theaters, at least here in Canada, like a lot of the Cineplexes, if that's the major chain here, moved to like it has an arcade, and that seemed to be really like kid focused. But I've saw that there's a movie theater that has like pickleball in the court where it's like you can go pickleball. And I do feel like, and then food and drinks. And it does feel like this thing that I think, even if you might end up paying more for the future movie going experience because you have dinner and drinks and you do something and then you go watch the movie and maybe you hang out there afterwards, you might ultimately spend more money than you used to, but it feels like you did more, I think.
Mhm.
And so like my thing between that and also these snack films is that I don't think there's like one solution to fixing how do we get people to movies. So I think, to your point, I've seen a lot of the in Toronto, the rehearsal was playing the Sunday before the episode dropped later that week. At the film festival, I went and watched the first 2 episodes of Heartstopper. I saw the first episode of Pachinko in a movie theater, the new season. Having like eventizing certain things, I think, makes a lot of sense, improving the experience and offering a variety of movies. Like, it is kind of fun. I've been seeing that North by Northwest has been playing a lot of movies because I think it's uh, one of the numbered anniversaries of that movie. And without looking up the date of the movie, whatever. But I do feel like what I think movie theaters need to do is kind of cast a large net, Taran, and hope that like, short films might appease some people and they'll go to that. Some people do want to go watch the long film. Someone I really love that, like, because I feel like I'm like actually a relatively new movie buff, of getting to go watch a movie that I've heard amazing things, but I kind of never really felt like I got it because I was like sitting in probably on Twitter while I was watching the movie. But going to sit in a movie theater and watch North by Northwest or The Godfather or something else is really fun for me. These people who want to have a night out and play pickleball and have dinner and then go watch whatever. I think we're going to see a lot of variety and trying to figure out what works. And then they'll take the wrong lesson and just pick the ones that make the most money. Taran.
Yeah, I will say, in terms of like investing in the sound, like the quality of the theaters, for me at least, like that's huge, because basically the AMC Dolby theaters are, like, as far as I know, pretty much the top tier standard stuff. There's like true IMAX stuff that you can't get there in terms of like screen and format and stuff like that. But like when it comes to like watching any given movie, the Dolby theater is pretty much the best. And what that means for me is that, like, that's kind of the only one I want to go to, because everything else feels worse now.
Right.
And so, like, for instance, I almost went and saw Smile 2. It was in the Dolby theater, and I was pumped about it because, like, a horror movie in a Dolby theater is particularly good. It's a lot darker, so lots of reasons. I missed it. And the following weekend, it was Venom, and I had no interest in seeing Venom.
I know that thing is winning the box office, and I still haven't seen it.
It is. Like, but like I was like, oh, that's so lame. Now I've missed my chance to see Smile 2 in that theater, and now I haven't seen Smile 2 in theaters at all. Probably won't. Probably will wait until it comes home. And so like I feel like like let's get some higher quality stuff. It exists, like let's get more of that. And then when it comes to seating, I just flat out can't go to fold down chairs anymore. I just can't. It's like why is my butt asleep while I'm watching this movie?
People don't know this, but Taran is actually secretly super tiny, and he gets sucked into it just folds him up like a child. People don't know that. People don't know that about you.
I used to do that when I was a kid.
I know. I took my niece to go to the movie, and we had to go like rush outside to get one of those like boxes so that she could sit on, these little plastic boxes, because otherwise she would just fold out. She just sit there like an accordion. Yeah.
But aside from that me being very picky about my theaters now, it's very nice to hear that hopefully we'll be seeing some higher quality stuff. This idea of like
I was just gonna say, unfortunately, it's from the like big chains, and I'll talk a little bit. I'll let you finish your thought, but I want to talk about like we also should be making sure that we don't lose these like small independent theaters. There's not much you can do on a personal level to do that, because it's so tough to like. But like if you feel like you can go and you can support your little local theater, I think it's so important to do. And they're often playing a lot of the stuff that like you might not see it. So a lot of these like retro nights, or they'll do Rocky Horror Picture Show, but as a like sing along or whatever, like those are things that are worth checking out, see what's happening at your local theater. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's my thing. When I lived in Boston, I used to love going to, when I was in college, I used to love going to all these little theaters and watching. I watched a bunch of really cool movies there. But some of them had literal fold out chair, like folding chairs that they would then stack after the movie. So listen, now I'm too old for that, Yeah, I know. But this idea of pickleball in a movie theater is very funny. There's no shot I would ever play pickleball in a movie theater, because either I'm doing it before the movie and I'm now way too sweaty to sit in a seat in a movie, or I'm doing it after a movie and I'm way too like bogged down by popcorn.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna find the most competitive pickleball courts at the movie theater pickleball, but I could see like some shuffleboard or something like that happen. Like kind of like these like there are a lot of places. We went to Chicago, went to a shuffleboard place. It was so fun. That's the type of thing I think could like like cornhole level games, like lawn games.
There is a couple of fun theaters, but one in particular, there's a rooftop theater in San Diego where it's on a literal rooftop, like on a little skyscraper kind of. It's I think in a hotel. And you can go there. They're generally playing older movies, but like you can go there. I think I went on the 4th of July and I watched like Independence Day. And you go there, you're on like kind of like a lawn chair, and they have little lawn games up there, like exactly what you were saying. And like a little spot to take a photo, and you can like hang out. It's kind of a cool experience. Like it's kind of fun. It's not something that I do regularly though, which is interesting.
Well, But I think the idea that for me would be like, oh, when there's a thing where I could be like, oh, what am I like? Yeah, like what could I do on a Friday night with some of my friends? Like, oh, we could like the movie theater could be an option where we could kind of have like a party, like not like a party, but like we could have more of a social experience. But I also want to make sure that movie theaters are also the experience where I'm like, I just want to go in and watch like 3
Mm.
movies, you know, and just like,
Well,
you know, get through them and maybe eat dinner between, like have a decentish meal, not basically like a hot dog, and then go, you know, like that's, I want both of those things to exist in the movie theater experience of the future.
imagine the world, right, where you go to a theater and it does have just a bunch of stuff. Like maybe there's some, there are plenty of theaters in malls as well, and I think
Right.
that that
Right.
is a thing that people do. They'll go to the mall, hang out, see a movie. But imagine a world where it's like it's something similar to that, but the movies, quote unquote, are pretty short, 13 to 40 minutes sometimes, and you're just kind of like, which ones do we want to see? Let's pop into
Yeah.
this one. Oh, that one was kind of lame. What about this one? Oh, that one was great. Like I feel like there's a world where that works. I don't know if it works large scale, but like it's kind of an appealing idea to me.
I know, yeah, there's the difference here between like, because then you think if you're gonna go watch like a movie, like even, you know, a lot of movies creep up over that around that 2 hour mark. So it's like, yeah, you cut out a big of that, like that social time to be like watching the movie. Also, do not get me started on how many advertisements play at the beginning of a movie. It is
Oh my
dreadful.
god. Yeah,
It is, I
at
cannot stand
AMC
it.
a 13-minute movie would be 3 times as many ads.
I don't know what to do. I don't know. It's so bad. And I'm the person who like can't go late. You know, I can't be like, I'm too much of a like, gotta be there on time. Then being on their time means sitting between in front of so many advertisements before the previews. I like previews, just hate advertisements. But yeah, I just think they need a bunch of variety. Which is tough. They'll have to decide, like they only have so many theaters, like how many like screens in their theater, and they'll have to figure out what to do. You know, the numbers for me in terms of the box office, like being around like, you know, almost $7 billion is like, it's a lot of money. It's like people are not going to the movie theater, but there might be a complete change in the old style of like, just, oh, you know, like it was so standard, just go and watch a movie in the movie theater. So they need variety, I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, a couple other pieces of news. Some sad news. Show. I don't know if we've talked about it here, but there was this very interesting show called Scavenger's Reign that I think was originally produced by Max, but then eventually landed on Netflix, hoping to. I think basically like it was on Max. Max canceled it, and then Netflix grabbed it, put it on Netflix with the hope of like it blows up on Netflix. We'll get a second season. Of has now officially, I believe, been told no second season for Scavenger's Reign, which was this animated show, that was like very heavily alien. I think is the most
Yeah.
descriptive way of saying it. It was about like this crew of people who crash landed on a very alien planet, and just sort of had their various journeys through the alien planet. It was a very, very interesting, artistic feeling show. Certainly not for everyone. You can understand why it didn't have like a super wide appeal, but like it was incredibly beautiful and captivating in so many different ways. Honestly, not exactly my kind of thing either. It wasn't exactly very character focused, but still captured my imagination in a lot of ways. And I'm very sad to see that it is so far not getting picked up again, because I wish there was more stuff like this.
Yeah, so think one thing about Scavengers Reign, I mean, when the announcement was made that Netflix had not picked it up, which was like confirmed by the creators of the show, Joseph Bennett and Charles Hutner, they'd originally done a short film for Adult Swim, and then they took that and adapted it into basically wrote the scripts and tried to get it picked up, and Adult Swim passed, and HBO picked it up for Max. Then when it got canceled, right, like Netflix picked up the first season just to see if it would hit. It seemingly did not do well enough that it did not get renewed. But I do feel like this feels like something that they're passionate about. They even say in the release when they talked about that the show was canceled that this is not the end. They've released, they've not released. You might be able to watch it. They've created a teaser trailer for season 2, so they seemingly have stuff that they could show somebody else if someone was interested. So we would see. But I'm with you. This is not something that I was thinking I would watch, and I just kept hearing people who loved it, people who I really trust. Josh Wigler really loved this show. DM Philly as well really loved this show. And it's so unique in a way that I actually think that's kind of one of the setbacks for the show, because it sort of has this almost non-traditional sort of thing to it in terms of it feels like one of the things that I sometimes I'm thinking about when I'm watching a show that is like set on an alien planet or whatever is like, is that how it would happen? Is that like, oh, it's weird that they also have basically animals that are tigers, or whatever, and this show is like, no, this biosphere is so different and so weird. And this is how the life on this planet evolved. And it was so interesting and fascinating. And I really enjoyed it. I'm pretty bummed that it didn't get renewed, but I'll just cross my fingers and hope that it gets picked up somewhere else. We were talking about this before, trying to come up with examples of like whether or not this happened. I do feel like in the like, mid from 2000 to like 2010, I feel like there was like this, there was a wave of this happening of like, we should do it. So like saving the show Chuck, Community moved to Yahoo. This like effort to save a thing we loved. I just wonder if there's too much TV out there for any particular show to like break through, to have that much of like a vocal cult audience to do that. And then I was trying to come up with examples like, didn't Cobra Kai move? And you're like, that's because it was good. Like Netflix bought it because they were like, oh, that's good. And I believe also it was on was it on YouTube Premium or whatever?
Yeah, it was YouTube
so like
TV or something.
they probably were like more than okay to be like, yeah, you can buy this thing from So I can't really think of recently where like a show kind of got that like the groundswell of momentum to get saved. The fact that I didn't know that this got canceled until you told me earlier today makes me feel like we will not be seeing groundswell of momentum. Not that it wouldn't be picked up. They could try their best to get it picked up somewhere else. But we haven't had that in a while, Taryn, of like, we got to save Chuck, the show.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like, it already kind of had that moment. Like Netflix, that's kind of the thing is like, Netflix is, I mean, since its inception, basically, since it became maybe we'll get picked up. It was always maybe we'll get picked up by Netflix. And they have such an easy way of determining whether they should or not, which is let's just buy it, put the first season on Netflix, and then if it pops off, yeah, we'll make a season 2. And if it doesn't, sorry. And that's kind of what happened here. And it's hard to imagine that another service would be interested, considering if it doesn't work on Netflix, it's probably not going to work anywhere.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine got canceled by Fox and then NBC picked it up. I think they did that with the Mindy Project too at one point, but those just feel so different. They feel not like Scavenger's Reign, Yeah. So we'll see.
Okay. Another piece of news I saw. This was big news for me because this was quite the monumental experience for me as a child. Mass Effect, the video game, has officially been announced to be adapted into a TV series for Amazon, which is very exciting. There's been a lot of talk about Mass Effect as a TV series, quite frankly, or a movie, but it's a very, very narrative-driven game. It really blew my mind when I was a kid. I know that there's been a lot of interest from a lot of different parties in creating this show, and it turns out the person that's going to be helming this show is named Daniel Casey, famous for his work on F9, The Fast Saga.
He did rewrites for 10 Cloverfield Lane as well.
He did. Hopefully this is a Craig Mazin situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's another guy.
Pretty rare, but
there's also Kareem Zrek. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, but he worked on the Marvel shows, the Netflix era Marvel shows, so Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Punisher, and Legion. Yeah. So that feels better. That feels like it does
feel better. Yeah. He is working on the show. Daniel Casey is, I believe, like the head head person here, and
He's
creative
writing and executive
director
producing.
is
Yeah.
producing under him, or I'm not sure according to this article. So
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of skepticism here. There's a lot of ways you can mess up Mass Effect, of course. Mass Effect is a sci-fi soap, space opera kind of show, or story, that, you know, it doesn't necessarily like do anything weird or different or new, but for video games it felt like it
Well,
did, and it was
there is
very like, go ahead.
well, there's one thing. The name is Mass Effect, in which case you make decisions that affect the rest of the game. Is that's
Yeah.
not so? I do.
Well,
There
yeah.
is a little. Okay, so there is a little bit of like, in terms of the actual like, I wonder whether like, and I do feel like that's a little bit like when it's like, oh yeah, Mass Effect, okay, yeah. And my brother loves these games, he's played them through a bunch of times because it's like, oh yeah, let me do the different thing, and then this character, like, did I get to the end with these characters, I get to the end of the game with these characters, like there is that piece of it that I wonder if they will try to emulate, but the only way I can think you could do that is like basically the Bandersnatch
Yeah,
Netflix
Bandersnatch
model.
it.
So
That would be
I do.
impossible.
Yeah, right. So I wonder how they incorporate that element, because that's the thing about Mass Effect that I always heard in terms of this. Yeah, you make these decisions, and those, it also, there was this very similar what were those series of games? Remember there was like a Walking Dead and a Game of Thrones game. They almost looked very comic booky, and they were very narrative driven, and you made
Yeah.
decisions along the way to
Telltale.
decide whether, yeah, the Telltale games. That's right. Um so that's the one thing about Mass Effect that I feel like where like it, but I feel like it almost like it was like, even with that, like that's not what it like. I don't feel like that's the thing that people are like, and it's the most amazing game because it does this thing. It was an amazing game that also
It
had this structure to it.
it tells a good story. There are elements of choosing your own path. Part of the criticism of the ultimate conclusion of the game is that there's two sides of it. One side is it felt like nothing mattered. The other side was it brilliantly felt like a lot of things mattered, because there's kind of two different ways that you can look at the ending, two
Right.
different pieces of content that you can experience as the ending. I personally took one and decided, yeah, that's fine, and I looked at the other and I was like, this is my ending. And so,
Right.
quite frankly, I think for the TV show, they're just gonna pick a story. They're just gonna,
Sure.
whether it's the story of the games or just in the universe, they're just gonna pick a path and go that path. And I guess my point is that like it's not like a revolutionary tale. So how do you make this show stand out? I think there's a way to make this really work, but I do think it requires a lot of like passion and talent. And so skepticism is definitely high for it, but I'm interested.
I feel like we've reached a point with video game adaptations where we've had arguably two of the most successful ones, at least on television,
Yeah.
in The Last of Us and Fallout. It's very interesting to look at the two of them. Fallout just cast Macaulay Culkin in a role for season
Mhm.
2, which I'm very excited about. I feel like that fits the vibe incredibly. But Fallout decides to basically say this show is set in the same world as the games you played, but it's not a story from the video games. Last of Us does the opposite, where they're like, this is, with some decisions that we'll make because we're making a television show, we're trying to be pretty faithful to the story, and we're going to like show you the story that you saw in the game. And I think that makes sense for those two pieces. Like if you look at The Last of Us, like I think like the story is really the heart there, and it would be like a shame almost to like not tell that story on television, as opposed to Fallout. And I'm less familiar with Fallout in terms of playing it, but it does seem like that's not exactly the go-to for everybody's. It's like the world is
Yeah.
so fun, and so yeah, playing that world. So I'm interested in terms of for you, whether you think the right choice is to say, let's retell a story we told in the video game, or is the decision to say, here's a like, kind of like I talked about this a lot, where it's like, let's turn the camera and like actually look at this story over here that like is sort of happening in the same world and maybe connected to that stuff, and you might see characters pop up, but we're not trying to tell a story we already told in video game format.
I mean, I would assume like I love Mass Effect. I think the world is too generic for a Fallout style adaptation.
Got it.
And while the story is also not like the most revolutionary thing, like it is very much like it's about the characters. They're like you play the game, you fall in love with the various side characters, and in many ways.
Oh, so it's like
And
it's yeah. It's like a polygamy story. I get.
oh
I
yeah,
got
oh
it.
yeah. But yeah, I think it will be telling the story of the games, and and I do think it's a good story. And like if it's told well, then it's like a solid show, solid sci-fi show, which honestly doesn't come around that often in terms of like space opera stuff. So even if they just tell the story well, I think that's cool. But yeah, we'll see. We'll as we get more information about it, we'll talk more, of course.
Do you have a question? I would love to ask this of the audience as well, and if you have an answer, let me know. But maybe ponder on it. But do you have like a video game you're waiting to be like, I want to see? Because I do feel like we have really
Knights of
turned
the
the
Old
corner. We're
Republic.
like Knights of the Old Republic,
Star
Star
Wars.
Wars. Okay, all right.
I want to see Revan on screen.
Yeah. I don't know if I have one. I have to think. There's like ones that I like am intrigued by. There's a lot on the horizon. We have another Sonic movie, the Minecraft movies, and obviously these are very different than like what you're like. I would also want to is Horizon Zero Dawn, have they said that that's coming or not? I know God of War is coming
God of War
on
is coming.
Amazon
God of
as
War,
well.
Rafe Judkins dropped from the God of War show, which is interesting.
Yeah. And also, it's just so the other piece of this I was just interested in is like, it's so interesting that it's Amazon again. Like, I feel like the more we're talking about TV every week, and then I'm seeing like, oh, this is what Amazon put out as their thing. It just is so like, and it makes so much sense. But they're just trying to be like, okay, you watched Fallout, you should also buy Fallout from Amazon, or like you watched Rings of Power, you should buy the Lord of the Rings books or the DVDs from Amazon.
I mean,
right?
that's
Like
what we
it's
talked about with Fallout. Yeah, it's like it is. I mean, it's a great strategy, I think, for making money for sure. Latest update on Horizon Zero Dawn that I'm seeing here. Netflix cancels Horizon Zero Dawn adaptation due to allegations against showrunner Steve Blackman.
Okay, all right. Well,
so
we'll wait. They'll try that again at some point. So yeah.
I mean, also Horizon Zero Dawn sounds a way too similar to Horizon the American Saga.
Which also maybe isn't happening, but we'll see.
Yeah.
It's been filmed. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some of the shows that have been airing this week. Arcane drops its first.
Speaking of video games.
Yeah. 3-episode arc. Arcane, of course, the show based on the League of Legends video game. Incredibly popular and successful video game, especially outside of the US. And it does not feel like a video game adaptation. Talking about like actually, I don't even know for sure, but like the game is like a top-down strategy game. The show is a very like narratively driven thing. It's based on characters and lore from the games, but it is not like, I think the majority probably of viewers of Arcane have never even played the game. Would be my assumption. Although that might be a reach. I'm not sure.
No, I think it's right. And then also what I heard a lot of people who were League of Legends fans and the show is coming out, they were like, maybe don't try to play the game. This is not a thing where it's like when you go into it, you're going to be like, yes, all of the stuff from the show that I loved. You're just going to get sucked into this game. There's, very addicting. I believe people are going to, people will correct me if I'm wrong, but like from what I've seen people play League of Legends, sort of like, that's such a bad analogy, but like two teams, and so you play on a team with other people and you can be a certain character and you're doing different things, and so you might want to be like, you're trying to make up your party of your team to make sure you have like someone who's attacking, someone who's healing, someone who's defending, and you're like attacking the other team and almost capture the flag, like not that, but cooler than
destroy
that.
Each other's bases, kind of
destroy
deal,
each other's bases. Yeah, that's right. And so that's League of so yeah, but then this video game was being like, oh, you're gonna like you play this character in the game, like now what's that character's story, as opposed to it's not a very narrative driven game. And actually a lot of people are like, you if you like Arcane and then you're thinking, oh, I'll go play the video game, you might actually not find that you enjoy it that much.
It's an entirely multiplayer competitive style game. It's from my understanding, I've never played it. It's like one of those games that's just like very addicting in that you will play a game and then as soon as you finish the game, you will start a queue up for another game and so on and so forth. Definitely not a narratively driven game by any means, as far as I'm aware. But the show incredibly successful. They have this interesting strategy for releasing the show. They did it last time. They're doing it again, seemingly this time, which is that they're dropping 3 episodes at a time. Each episode is its own arc in the story.
They put the arc in
and
Arcane, Taran.
There you go. And it's very interesting. So there are a few things that the show does really, really well. The animation is incredible. The character design, they put a lot of work into making sure everything is like picture perfect. The music is incredible. Linkin Park's reunited band wrote a song for their show for episode 1 in season 2. They have the editing, the music, the pacing, the animation, all of that down, and it works on so many different levels. I think it appeals to a lot of different kinds of people, and it's very, very well received. Season 2 so far, the first drop, topping the charts of streaming. There's a ton of attention on it. I have watched the first episode so far. I will say personally, it's still like, I started watching season 2 and I was like, you know what? Maybe I was a little hard on season 1. I liked it, but I wasn't in love with it as much as some other people, because this is so cool. Like, some of the opening sequences and montages and music and characters, and I was like, wow, like this is pretty impressive.
Yep.
And then I remembered why it's not quite for me, which is that like the character work is fine, in my opinion. It's more about the overall plot arcs and fun sequences. For me, it's a little bit style over substance, but the style is impeccable, and I love watching it just for that. And the substance is there. It's just not quite what I'm looking for in a show. Just like characters doing things that are just like, oh my God, of course. Well, we need to do this. So of course they're going to yell at each other about that. But this is an incredibly popular show, and one that I would not hesitate to recommend you trying out, just to see what I believe to be some of like the pinnacle of animation and television, and the way that they're putting this together production wise. It's just very, very good.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I really think that that's basically where I am too, that I think it looks better than the story is. But the people who do like the story, it's saying it works incredibly well for them. This is 100% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 96 audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's incredibly well liked, well loved. DM Philly was a big advocate for the show, and like he had it as like his best show for season 1 of that year. Not just best animated show, not just it was a very good show. He thought it was the best show on TV. And that might have been the Severance year as well. So like just to give you like, taste of like what else was out there. Yeah, I've only watched the first episode of the second season. I'm with you. Again, there's like a couple chunks this episode that are like big actiony set piece stuff that look incredible. They look great. I'm with you. I feel like for me, in terms of the story, I thought Act 1 of season 1, it like blew me away, kind of the end where we get there by the end of that. And then I think everything else has been like, I'm trying to get to that level of the story. I'm gonna keep watching. I really like this. I think it's very, very strong. Arcane.
I would say my biggest issue with it is that like they turn the dial on like drama up to 11 at all times. Like they will milk the drama as much as possible at all times, which to me diminishes. There's not enough fluctuation for me. Everybody's always mad at each other all the time, and they're always making mistakes, and it's just like there's not enough downtime in the emotional turmoil. That's part of my issue with it. But anyway, another show that began this week, The Day of the Jackal, which is an adaptation of a novel. There has been a previous adaptation before, I think in the 70s? Or that was when
a while
the book
ago.
was, 70s. Day of the Jackal.
It was a film.
1973 political thriller film. And I got that sense. I've watched 2 episodes so far. I believe the first few are out, something like that. But I definitely got that sense that it is a very sort of like by the books thriller novel feeling. It is not really doing anything new. I've said that for other shows before, but what I like about it is that it's done very well. And especially like it opens with an assassination. The main character is an assassin, and the way that that was presented, I thought was very fun and engaging, and the show is very much working for me so far. I'm enjoying it. It's not exactly like I'm not gonna like say rush to your television to watch it quite yet, but I'll keep watching it, and then I'll let you know once we get more in. But yes, I believe the first 5 episodes are out, as according to Jess there in the chat.
Yeah, it's a Peacock original. It weirdly is having a week delay release in Canada, and I think maybe even the UK. So I have not been able to check it out yet. A 5-episode drop is incredibly strange. It's not
It's a
like
lot. The
part 1
episodes
and
are
part
long
2.
and they're dense.
We're doing 5 episodes and then weekly for the last half of the season. So
That's what we're
to me,
okay. Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's something about like I've heard from people where it's like my brother does this a lot. Where I'm like, "You watching the Penguin?" And he's like, "Oh, we're waiting for it to finish, and we're gonna binge it." Or like, if you watch this, he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna wait for it to be finished, and we'll binge it all." Maybe this is just to like expedite that of like they get both, they get the binge, then it will slowly like they'll get like kind of like a month's, almost 2 months worth of chatter if it's if it was like a chatter worthy show, which I think that this is like a level down from that. I think like this to me feels like the exact type of show that has come out of the last few years that like 15 years ago they would have just done the movie. Now we're in the world where it's like we could get Eddie Redmayne and Lashana Lynch to do like a show on Peacock, so let's do it. And they do it. Like The Old Man feels like that to me. Of like that would have been a movie. Tulsa King, they would have made that a movie. Even like Mayor of Easttown, like it was like amazing, but like that would have been a movie. There's just so much stuff that we get with these mini series, these limited series with a really big name attached. I'm pretty excited by this one. I think it's like kind of like in the wheelhouse of a show that I'm going to really like. I could also see where this was maybe one of the worst times shows. I know it's British, but being like political thriller assassinations in November 2024.
Not
We'll
gonna
see if
lie,
this is like
it crossed my mind. His
I
first
know.
target was like
Yeah, so I haven't watched this, so I don't even know it. I'm being like maybe people are not gonna feel this. I'm really interested. I was thinking about this earlier today about like I posted my like front runners for best picture, and I'm wondering whether that we can like indicate anything. I was looking back at like what in like 2017, like February 2017, whether or not like we'll see this shift. There'll obviously be a delay in like the type of content we'll see because it takes so long to make stuff. But I wonder if this is just like they were just like, oh man, did we actually release Jay the Jackal for November 2024? Maybe that was a mistake, but we
maybe it
shall
was on
see.
purpose. I
Maybe.
will say the thing about this show, I think this happens a lot to me, at least when I watch shows, especially like this, is that it has a strong hook. I'm into it in the first few episodes, but 10 episodes of this does feel like it would be a lot. So I'm curious to see if it maintains its pace. I will check back in later. Wolf Hall, I talked about, the British historical drama, has begun airing season 2. It's sort of like sequel series, you might call it, after like 10 years or so. I, of course, am not caught up on that. I did manage to catch the first episode of the original first season from 10 years ago, and can confirm it is very good, and I really enjoyed it. So I will do my best to try to catch up on that. But so far, the sequel series has been very well received from what I can tell, although it's hard to see much about it because not a lot of people are watching it. So keep that in mind. And then in the world of film, Heretic has released. This is the horror movie starring what's his name?
Hugh Grant is
Hugh
playing the
Grant.
villain. Yeah.
Yes. A24 movie also has been well received for horror. People saying Hugh Grant is very fun in it, and did well in the box office. Just barely beat out for the number 2 spot by some sort of Christmas movie, but did about $11 million over the weekend, which I believe is the 3rd highest A24 showing behind what is it?
No.
not Heretic, Hereditary.
Hereditary. Yeah.
They
Hmm.
really like their H names,
Yeah.
and Civil War. So very, very well, done very, very well for A24. Horror continues to do well in the box office, of course, and as you mentioned, Venom is still maintaining its top spot so far, but it was a fairly low earning weekend in general.
I have not seen Heretic yet. I will be going to check it out soon. I've just been doing a little bit of traveling, so I wasn't able to get to it. I do really like, I think it's very funny that both Here and Heretic are playing, and they're actually playing at a local theater near me. And I wonder if anybody actually was like not looking closely enough and went into the wrong theater, and there was like, this is way wrong. Either way.
That's great. I would
I
love that.
believe Bird releases this past week, which I also saw, Tiff, and that's Barry Keoghan playing. But she's not even really. It's actually Nakia Adams, who is quite phenomenal in this movie. If you get a chance, check that out. And it also has the guy from Passages, which I will Franz Robanowski, I believe is his name. He's in this movie as well, and he's very, very good in it. I would highly recommend watching Bird if you're able to this weekend. And then Red One is the the Rock movie, the Rock Santa movie. What is happening?
Upcoming stuff is
yeah. Sorry.
yes. The Red One is another Christmas movie starring Dwayne the Rock Johnson, Chris Evans, and J.K. Simmons, and it's sort of like a Christmas action movie. Very infamously now with a $250 million budget, which is absolutely bonkers for a Christmas movie. For really any movie of this caliber, a lot of people looking at this to be a potential massive bomb in the box office. That's the speculation. There's been some rumors about drama on set with Dwayne the Rock Johnson being unprofessional, and part of the reason why the budget ballooned out so much is because he would like show up 8 hours late and pee in bottles and weird stuff. So interesting to see what happens with that one, but
and this is I feel like I've just been kind of like on autopilot with Red One. I keep seeing it, and I knew it was The Rock, and I knew it was J.K. Simmons, and I think Chris Evans, but then also there was Red Notice on Netflix, which is one of those movies that was like nobody watched it, but it was the most watched movie like ever on the platform, and like for the first 48 hours. And is there a Red One too? But now he's doing Red Notice. No, that was Red Notice. And then he's doing Red One, but they're totally different. One is Amazon and one is Netflix. And apparently they want this Red One to be a holiday like franchise. They would like to do multiple of them.
Yeah.
But you can't start it with $250 million. This is wild.
We'll see.
I don't know.
We'll see.
Going on. All right. Well, that's this weekend. So yeah.
Yeah. That's upcoming. But let's quickly catch back up with some of the other shows that have been airing.
Yes.
I did manage to finish The Diplomat, and I last week said that the first 3 episodes, I was hearing the second set of 3 episodes was better than the first 3. I can confirm. I think that is pretty fair. I think that it definitely picked up the pace and got very, very interesting in the second 3 episodes. I'm very excited to watch the next season when that eventually airs. I will say there were a couple of silly things, over dramatic, kind of like unrealistic things that happen in the show. I think I remember that being the case for season 1, but it's still just so fun, and Kerry Russell is so good, and I really enjoyed my time watching The Diplomat. Definitely would recommend checking it out.
So it's about a year and a half ish between seasons. So it did do 2023 to 2024. So it looks like if it, came back, like they would not come back till 2026, probably. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but I do feel like this is the type of show where the thing you're saying of like, ooh, it's starting to feel like more unrealistic things are happening, where it's like the central premise of this show is such a big thing that if it happened would be such a big deal. And I actually thought that the season 1, in terms of unrealistic things happening like in backdoor meetings, was true, but not necessarily like public things that everybody would be like, it'd be the biggest news story. Where I feel like without watching season 2, that's a little bit of my worry of the show. Is like, how do you keep escalating this stuff? You have to do it with
okay, there's 2 major issues I have. One is a character thing that kind of like came and went, and it was weird. The other is just a kind of silly thing that happens, and it's the sort of thing I'm willing to be like, that's fine, we'll just move
Yeah,
on.
sure.
But it was a little bit like, oh, okay, we're doing that.
Like, no disrespect, but like in terms of like the stuff that like the big things that happen, there's like, Grey's Anatomy is on like season whatever, and it's like, yeah, how many things can happen at that particular hospital? Where's that what? But like, they got to make a
That I'm
show.
fine with.
So
That's
okay,
like
okay,
whatever. It's
okay,
more so like just yeah.
okay, all
Um,
right.
the Penguin also
Yes.
wrapped its season up, and I was behind on the Penguin, and at some point I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna give up on being up to date on this one while I maintain all the other stuff. I know you've got the Penguin covered. I will watch it. I have still seen just one episode. I will catch up because I have heard very good things, Grace.
Yeah, I think Mike and I both really liked the finale. There's an episode, I think it's about episode 4, that I felt like was the moment where it felt like even Mike and I had to be like, oh, people are really liking this show. Like we were recording a little bit early to release it, and then we kind of got these comments like, no, that was amazing. That was so good. It had like incredibly high critic score, Rotten Tomatoes score, whatever. And then I feel like it never really lost its momentum from there. Thematically, the show was really strong. I feel like the ending, the last episode really sort of ties everything together. I had a little bit of like, what do we do? Like, what are we doing? What do we like? What do and not like literally not asking it rhetorically because I was excited to watch the show. I thought the show was very good. I was like, what are they trying to tell us? And then I feel like the last episode sort of, it's like, oh, okay, got it. And sets us up at the end of the show. Colin Farrell in an interview today that got released or on Monday after the episode, or probably dropped late Sunday night, says, I would be the Penguin again. I would do it for another season. So all rumors that he hated it and would not do it again are not true, I guess. Not that he didn't hate it. He might have hated it, but that he'd be willing to do it again, I think, because it was so successful. I've talked a lot about whether this show could be an anthology show of Batman villains. So I think that's certainly on the table as well. I think this was very successful, and HBO might look at that success and think, what else could we do here? Whether they can get Colin Farrell back or not, they might move forward with the show either way. But I thought the season was very, very good. I would say I don't think it's like the greatest television show I've ever watched. It does still have this like it's a Batman cartoon, comic book show, and so I thought it was one of the best versions of that I've seen. But not that we're like doing the most revolutionary stuff we've ever seen. The performances are amazing. The set design is really good. Aesthetically, it looks really great. Literally a shocking moment in last night's episode that I was like, could not believe really that I was like, oh wow. So it's good. It probably won't make my like top 5 of the year. Could it make top 10? Like, yeah, might be able to sneak in there, but we'll see.
All right. I did also finish Disclaimer, which aired its finale this week. Disclaimer, the Alfonso Cuarón television show that is about a man, widower. What's the name for a man who's lost his wife?
One widower or widowee. I don't know if there's either.
Who
Yes, widower just says.
goes on a revenge plot, has a revenge plot against a woman who he feels is responsible for his son's death and tries to ruin her, is kind of the basic premise of this show. And I reported in after watching the first episode, and I basically said this was not paced well. That this first episode did not draw me in, and it did not work for me. But I'm hoping that it can bring me in later. It did bring me in later. I reported that. And by the end, I really did enjoy this show. I think that my initial criticism stands. I think that like Alfonso Cuarón is a film director, and I don't know that he paced this in the way that a TV show might normally be paced, which is perhaps the reason why they dropped 2 episodes at once and to begin. But it is a very slow start, and I don't think it ever fully recovered from that in terms of audience perception, but I do think it was a very fun show. Fun is not the right word for it, actually. It was a very interesting show. I think that it has a lot to say. Obviously, it's the performances are incredible. Kevin Kline, in particular, I thought was really good. It was really fun watching him watching him in this role. But is it for everyone? Definitely not. You would want to, if it sounds like the kind of thing you'd be interested in, if you've seen his films and you're like, yeah, I'm interested in checking it out. I do think it's good stuff. I do think you'd enjoy it, but not for everyone for sure.
I wonder whether there's something to, like, again, so all like the streamers are in this rush to make content. I think Apple TV in particular is the streamer where they do have a ton of great stuff. They have a pretty low subscriber rate in comparison to a lot of other things. And I feel like what they need is that, like, when you finish watching something, there's something ready in your queue to watch as well, right? Like that's kind of like, that's what Netflix has better than anybody else, because they create a lot of their own content. They buy a lot of content. And so that when you're finished watching something, they'll serve you up something and they'll want you to watch, and you're like, okay, I'll watch that. Apple just doesn't have, I think, like enough of it. And one of the plays they've made is to like work with really talented people. Not that other streamers are not, but like, and some name value too, of like, this is Kate Blanchett in a television show, they brought in Jake Gyllenhaal. They did Wolves. They did the Brad Pitt movie.
I did check that out, by the way. It was a fun movie.
Yeah. So that has been a little bit of their play, which I think is like, there was reports last year after the writer's strike that they were going to have to like cut back. And I think that might be where you see them cut back. But in the meantime, I'm more than happy to just be delivered like this, like star quality and stuff that is actually like quality entertainment as well, until they figure out what they'll end up doing. And I just wonder if like Alfonso Cuarón was looking around and Apple TV was like, we'll give you so much money to make a TV show. He's like, okay, like it could have been a movie, but he was like, I'll just make one long movie. And that's not really, I think, like, I can't really fault him for just like, if you feel like the pacing in terms of is off, like he makes movies and they just made him they give him a bunch of money to make a really long movie. So I don't know. I'm excited to check out Disclaimer. I only watched the first 2 episodes. I really did like it. There's a lot of TV to sift through right now, Taran.
There is. And it's about to be a lot more because we have some upcoming shows to check out. And I think we'll kind of like, we'll try to get through these. But Bad Sisters, speaking of, I believe this is Apple.
It's Apple TV. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Season 2 is coming soon. I have been on a journey catching up on season 1. It's a fun show. Basic premise of the show: set of sisters decide to murder one of their fellow sisters' husbands, whom they call the prick. And boy, is he a prick. So that is kind of the basic premise of the show. And it works. It's a funny show. It's pretty engaging. 10 episodes is a lot, but I'm getting through it. Season 2, I have no idea how season 2 is going to work because I haven't finished season 1 yet. But I'm curious and interested to check it out. So I will be on the journey to get there.
Yeah, Jess is a big fan of the show. Jess is in the chat just typing, "The prick is the worst. Joffrey levels of horrible, etc., etc."
He's bad.
And I'm hoping she's talking about the show, not one of us, but that's okay. But yeah, big fan of Bad Sisters. I'm excited for the new season to drop. So yeah, we're checking that one out for sure.
And then of course we've got some big ones. Silo, season 2 is coming.
Yes.
If you did not check out Silo season 1, this is based on a set of books that I actually read a long time ago, which is a very fun way to experience an adaptation, which is that I have such vague memories of the story, but I cannot remember for sure. Like when the twists are revealed, I'm like, oh, right, that was what it was, which is very fun. But very excited for season 2 of Silo. I felt like season 1 dragged a bit. I felt like great beginning, great end, rough middle. So I'm curious to see how season 2 goes, but I'm very excited to check it out.
I would agree with that. It actually, I think it has a very weird start, actually, that for me, that I actually feel like it's like sort of putters to get going. Once it gets going, I'm in it. I love it. And then I would agree with that, there's a little bit of a drag in the middle, and then it ends really strong. And yeah, so Mike and I will be covering that episodically. There's a preview pod up already. We start off with a little bit of like, if you've never watched this, what is it? Which is essentially a bunch of people in a silo, an underground silo, and they're told like, you can't leave. And if you ever say you want to leave, you have to leave and you're going to go. The world outside is poison and bad and terrible, but you said you wanted to leave, so we shall let you leave, and you get sent outside. And obviously, that's bad. Doesn't work out for them.
It's a very deep silo.
Yeah,
Society exists on levels. It's
yeah.
one of those fun little setups, and it's got Rebecca Ferguson, which clinches the deal, I think, because she's just excellent.
Yeah, Harriet Walker too, who's in a bunch of stuff that you probably know, Ted Lasso and Succession, all sorts of stuff. It's really fun, and the premise is like, why are we here? That's basically the main character being like, what is going on? Why are you telling us we have to stay in here? So it's very fun. It's very good. Season 2, comes out this week.
And of course, Dune Prophecy.
Maybe my most anticipated show of the year, Taran. I am a big Dune fan. It kind of became a running meme after I had not read any of the books. Went and watched the first movie when it came out. Immediately came home because they did the simul release of in theaters and on streaming. And I watched it again and just fell in love with it. And then I was debating whether or not to read the books. And I did eventually read the books. I've read the first 3 books, I believe. Loved the second movie. This one I'm very excited for it. Almost similarly to the video game stuff we were talking about, where like this one is kind of starting to go into new material. There is a book called Sisterhood, Dune Sisterhood, I believe, that this is going to take a lot of stuff from there. But we're set like
if I'm not mistaken, that was written by Frank Herbert's son, not the original author himself.
I believe that's true.
Very controversial in terms of how the fans took it.
What I've heard is that it's like, I think even the language, like I was in a bookstore and it was like the book is there and it said something of like, not basically like, you'll see like now a major motion picture or now an Apple TV Plus show. It did not say that. It said essentially like, we took some of these ideas and put them in the show. It's not like this is a one-to-one adaptation. And then set 10,000 years before the Dune movie. So I'm quite excited by it. Looks like a really fun cast. I'm super intrigued. The Bene Gesserit, which is based off of, which is sort of that women group who sort of like, by the time we get to the Dune movies, are in control of a lot of things. One of these like power players.
Precursors to the Jedi, world. By the way, like heavily
that's right.
Inspired the Jedi in Star Wars.
Yep. So I'm pretty excited to basically like go 10,000 years before and see like the start or very early on in their days of like how they start to amass that power. I'm very, very excited for this television show. You, Josh, and I will be covering this weekly as well, which I'm very excited about.
Yes, we're bringing the Raised by Wolves team back together.
That's right.
This is the Tastemakers alarm alert. We talk about a lot of things. We say, "Oh, this is good. This is fun. This was whatever." This is hopefully a tentpole show. We're gonna stick our tent pole in it, and then eat it, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Yes, and I think. Mm-hmm.
We'll see. This is hopefully on another level, but we'll be able to let you know probably next week. So stay tuned.
Yep.
Couple of other ones coming. Landman, the new Taylor Sheridan show.
Yep.
With Billy Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob Thornton. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have a lot to say about it beyond it's just another one of those shows, and it's Billy Bob Thornton and it's Taylor Sheridan, and I'm sure it's going to do well.
I've heard from some people that if you've never done the Yellowstone entry point, Yellowstone just returned for season 5, part 2, which is the first time that Kevin Costner's not been on the show. Just returned this past week. I've not checked out the episode yet, but I will.
Hey, Kevin Costner famously busy with Horizon Zero Dawn and American Saga Tale Part 1.
Super busy, super busy. Basically trying to see if anybody will let him release the second movie that he's already filmed with his own money, Taran.
Horizon plus 1 Dawn. An American Saga Part 2 tale of the story of Yellowstone.
This saga is way more American. Landman, I have heard, is potentially an entry point for people to enter the Taylor Sheridan. And I do feel like there's a little bit of like Taylor Sheridan sort of had this rap of like, I'll just say it, dad TV. Like that
Dad
shows.
core.
That's from my dad. My dad watches Yellowstone. People have been watching Linus Special Ops and really liking it. Got a little bit viral last week, a couple times in terms of hearing people watching about it. Landman, supposedly for people who have seen some episodes, are like, this could be one where if you like have not jumped into the Taylor Sheridan universe, you could do this one. You could jump into.
This guy has tricked me so many times with these shows. I
Yeah,
watched
well,
Mayor
not
of
you,
Kingstown.
Taran.
I watched
Not
Tulsa
you.
King. I watched Yellowstone. I watched all these shows, and it's like, yeah, it's a little bit fun at the start, but then it just settles into the same old sameness. But maybe I'll check it out.
You don't. Taran, I'm actually not speaking to you. I think you've watched enough to be like, these are not for me. They're for not your dad,
Billy
my
Bob
dad.
Thornton.
I know. So
That's
this is
how
what
they
I've heard
get
from
you.
people who watch it of like, yeah, you could check out this one maybe. So just putting that on the radar. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, let me drop one for you. This one, I've not heard anybody talk about it at all, except for like a long time ago. I think I heard somebody mention that it was coming, and I'm very excited to see that it is now currently on the horizon this week. It's a show called.
No, I was going to say Zero Dawn, but I meant to say
Horizon Zero
American
Dawn.
Song. I meant to say that's an American Song.
It's a show called The Creep Tapes.
Whoa.
And this is a show created by Patrick Bryce and Mark Duplass. Duplass.
Oh, yes.
Based on the movies, the Creep movies. I don't know if anybody has seen the Creep movies, but they're two of my favorite horror movies. Maybe favorite is a little strong, but the Creep movies are very, very fun little films starring Mark Duplass, who plays the creep, who hires like videographers to come film a video or whatever for him, and then things get creepy. And he's so good in it, and it's just such a fun premise done well. And now he is creating a show based around the premise. It looks like it's set to be about 6 episodes, and I'm personally super excited about it. It is definitely not going to be for everyone, but if you like people being creeps, and when I say creepy, it's not supernatural. This is just a guy who seems a little lonely and a little murderous. So we will see if the show lives up to the movies, because the movies are very fun.
He has a different name on IMDb, Taran. Have you seen what the name of the creep is in the Creep Tales? Have you seen this? Is this a spoil? I don't think it's a spoiler, but it's on there. I've seen it, and I feel like every year I think that the Oscars should give out, or the Emmy should give out best named character. This guy could take it. Peach Fuzz is apparently the name of the creep, and I don't like that name. I don't like. It's kind of like Long Legs. I feel the same way about Long Legs. Peach Fuzz apparently is the name of the creep.
That
might be a show creation. I don't know.
It's possible. I don't see that on IMDb.
Oh, I'm sorry, Wikipedia. Sorry, Wikipedia.
Oh, is this for the show? This show version?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think famously on IMDb he has different names. In the
so maybe someone incorrectly put Peach Fuzz. Oh, I see. Okay.
So it is possible he is going to be referring to himself as Peach Fuzz.
Okay, well, so anyway, I just want to talk about Mark Duplass for a bit, because this is a guy who he said on a podcast, he's like, I get paid so much money to do the morning show, like so much. The morning show, AppleTV, just paying people a bunch of money.
He was in that, yeah.
Yeah, and Mark Duplass gets paid a lot of money, and he's like, I just want to figure out what to do with all this money. And so he recently had a show get bought by Netflix called Penelope, which is a coming of age show about a girl who goes into the woods. It's like a very small cast. It was like all done to be as cheaply as possible. And I actually think, like, in connection to what we're talking about, it feels actually like very Blumhouse. Blumhouse has sort of captured the market on these really cheap horror movies, and then go out because there's such a staple of movie theaters, and you can almost guarantee that you'll make money on them. So even a horror movie from Blumhouse doesn't do well, like they still will make their money back likely. I think they made like $80 million or something last year at Blumhouse, and this is their whole model. It's like, no stars, no like whatever. We just like we pay as little as money to basically make like a horror movie. I actually was wondering whether there's a market for this. Like, I wonder if the return of theatrical comedies comes in this form of like just like pay somebody who's a new and upcoming comedian to just make like like we don't have any like we don't really see a lot of like comedies anymore. But Mark Duplass went out and made Penelope. He funded it. And Netflix bought the American distribution rights, and they bought it for a certain amount of time. So basically, if it goes on Netflix and it whatever, he still will own it, and he also owns all the international distribution rights. But this is another thing that it seems like he's just going out and using his morning show money to make the Creep Tales as well. So
Creep
it's a
tapes.
really interesting dude. I like the Duplass brothers a lot.
Yes, and I think Peach Fuzz is how people refer to the Creep, but
Okay.
it's hard to remember.
Well,
I
it's a
watch
great
it.
name. Between that and Long Legs, we have some front runners for best name
Yeah.
character of the year. If you think of
Creep
any
2 came out
others,
in
let us know.
2017, so it's been 7 years since I watched that. Jeez.
It's a found footage, like that's the premise, right? Like found footage.
Kind of, yeah. Like they're filming, but not entirely. But like, I think it's been 7 years. It's so weird. Creep 2 to me is like the new movie, but it was 7 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Now it's the show. I'm excited about it. There was also another show coming out this week. I don't want to overload. We don't overload too much here, but Say Nothing, I think. Is one that you are very excited about.
I'm very excited about this. Is FX and Hulu, and I just feel like FX just does television so well. I feel like they are very thoughtful. They don't make a lot of stuff, but this is who did Shogun. This is who does The Bear. This is English Teacher. What We Do in the Shadows. This is the type of stuff that I'm like, the latter two comedies, this one will not be a comedy. I did see a terrible thing that was like, if you miss Dairy Girls, check out Say Nothing. Don't think about Dairy. Say Nothing is about a book about a woman, I believe, who like she has 10 children and she is murdered. I believe.
Is
so,
it because
like,
it's like Irish?
I think just because it's Irish, and set during the Troubles, as well. So, yeah, but say that it's based on a book. People who I've seen be in the know about the show are excited about this show, so I am then very excited about the show, and I just really trust an FX property. Like this is sort of where I'm at in terms of that. So I'm very excited to check out Say Nothing. The one thing I will say, is that they're dropping it all as a binge this week. So this feels like not a show that I want to sit down and binge. So I probably will still take my time with it unless I'm just like completely enraptured. I mean, I guess they drop All the Bear as a binge and like that's their model, but I this does not feel like a show that they should be dropping in a binge. That's what they're doing. We don't need to litigate should shows be binge dropped or be released weekly. It doesn't matter. All to say is I think this one's going to be heavy. So heavy and dark. So be forewarned that they're dropping it all at once and take the time you need to watch the show. But this is one that's on my radar this week is Say Nothing on FX and Hulu.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I will. There's. Go ahead.
Well, I had one, and I forgot to mention in what I've watched already, so I'm going to bounce back and forth. I did this at the movie section. I got to check out an advanced screening of Nickel Boys. Nickel Boys is a movie by Ramel Ross, who has done a documentary, but this is his first scripted feature-length film, and I thought it was incredible. This is about two boys who go to what they in this world called the Nickel Academy. It's based on a book. It is about basically reform schools. So it's about a true thing, but they then fictionalize the setting for the movie and just the treatment they faced at this reform school for Black boys. Actually, it's for all children, but there's often a lot of like segregation they did where they put all the Black boys together and put all the white kids together. And the white kids, obviously, in the South in this time, were treated much differently than the Black boys. It's shot like entirely first person. So there are multiple characters that you're following, but they're all from their point. So every single scene in the movie, except for scenes where it's like very abstract, where you might be watching
Peep Show
like
style.
So like you're like if you're in the one character's point, you're in you're in
like you're literally like through their eyes.
You're through their eyes at somebody else. but there's like two characters where you like swap back and forth. So like there is
Mhm.
somebody who's playing that character because sometimes you're in the
Yep.
other boy's point of view. And then there's also there's a lot of like abstract nature that I just can't stop thinking about. So particularly there's one thing in the movie that I keep being like, why do they keep showing like NASA footage, for example? And I can't, like, I have a theory, but I can't figure, and it's just there's this abstract nature. I've never seen a movie like this. And then on top of it, I just think it's so incredibly powerful. I was really blown away by I got to see a Q&A with Ramel Ross, and I just thought he was like one of the most insightful, interesting people to hear talk about this movie. So if you can get a chance, like, watch the movie when it comes out. It should be releasing at least limitedly in December, and then should be a wide release in January. This to me immediately bumped up into like, I would love it to win Best Picture. I don't think it will. It certainly should be nominated. That was so unique, so just powerful and heartbreaking. It was amazing. It's incredible. So I'm just gonna put it on people's radar. Nickel Boys. Check it out.
Yeah.
It's not a Nickelback documentary, but put Nickel Boys on your to watch list. I highly recommend it. And I actually think it's very important that people watch this movie as well.
I looked it up on IMDb, and I'm seeing like some clips from it, and the cinematography looks
It
incredible.
it's so good. It's just it's a feast, but then it's also the story. Like, it has both of the things. We were talking about some stuff earlier where you're like, oh, visually it's amazing, but then I like want more from the story. This does both of these things so incredibly well. Anjanu Ellis is in this movie as well and is incredible. So, and then it's also based on a book. You could choose to go read the book by Colson Whitehead before you could watch the movie and then read the book. I will be picking up the book and reading it because I've not read it. But yeah, this is incredible.
I would also like to say that I had no idea how to spell this when I looked it up, and
Uh
so I was just like, I'm just going to start with nickel,
huh. Yeah,
and
sorry, sorry. Yeah.
and
Uh huh.
I typoed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought I'd almost typoed it, but I got nickel, and it turned out it was just nickel.
Yeah. It's Nickel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nickel
Um,
Boys. Yeah.
I thought it
Yep.
would be like an NIK kind of situation,
It
but
is. Yeah.
no, it is just nickel boys. Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that. So
Yeah.
obviously that listen, there was a lot of stuff,
A lot of
a
stuff.
lot of shows coming, a lot of stuff like that. But that's what we're here for. We've got some things on your radar now. They're on our radar. If we missed anything, please let us know. But next week we'll check back in. We'll do our best to check out as many of these as possible and let you know what has been worth checking out. That's kind of like, I think the format that we're doing here so far is that, like, over time, things get narrowed down to, these are the things we dropped, these are the things we finished, this is what's maybe worth watching. But if you, like us, like to be as up to date as possible, this is what's on the radar, and you can check it out yourself as well. But that is what we have for you this week. Jam-packed episode.
Jam packed. No, it's good summary, Taran. Yeah, and if we miss anything, like, let us know. Sometimes it's just our opinion. We're gonna leave stuff behind. But if say we leave something behind and you're like, it actually was really good, let us know and we'll see if we can, pick it back up. We might not, but we might. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, stay tuned then. Next week, we'll be back. We'll talk about all of the latest updates and what else is coming and what else we have watched. So thank you all so much for joining us. In the meantime, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube, the podcast feed, whatever it is that you want to enjoy here at We Know Scripted TV for the Tastemakers podcast. And I think that's about it. Anything else, Grace?
No, again, we're going to be covering Dune Prophecy, so make sure you're following along and checking out those episodes. We'll be joined by Josh to do
Dune is the
those.
show.
Dune is the show that we're putting the tent pole in for. Other things TBD, but we're doing it.
We don't know where else it goes.
That's right.
All right. Thank you all so much once again, and we will see all of you next time.